Since September 2014, a relentless conflict has been going on in Yemen. Starvation, epidemics, shellings, fights. This small Middle Eastern country has had to deal with both a civil warfare and a regional war. To understand why this conflict is happening, we need to go back to the 90s. Back then, North Yemen was an independent country, ruled by the Islamic State, whereas South Yemen belonged to the British Empire. After the British colonies left, South Yemen allied with the USSR. But after the Cold War, the USSR did not have enough financial power to keep helping South Yemen. This tightened the gap between the two Yemens, paving the way for the unification. 2 years later, Yemen as we know it today was born. Even though the country's borders were gone, the country still had a very strong ideological border. To understand this separation, we need to slice Yemen into 3 parts. You see, most of Yemen is populated by Sunnis, but in the north, most Muslims or Shiites. Whereas in the south, a group of insurgents loyal to the Southern Transitional Council are fighting for the independence of the south. Let's take a closer look. In 1994, Hussein al-Houthi complains of being marginalized and creates the Houthi movement. This group takes advantage of the president's weakness by taking control of the northern heartland of Sa'ada and neighboring areas. This group is anti-American, anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist. A few years later, in 2007, the Arab Spring gives birth to a southern movement, a separatist political group that will lead the Yemeni revolution in 2011. They demand a healthier economy and fight against corruption. This movement is quite successful in the sense that the current president at the time, Ali Abdallah Sahel, is replaced by his vice president, Abrado Mansour Hadi. His mission is to write a new constitution and to lead the country to a more secure future. His plan to separate the Yemeni territory into federal regions is received very badly by the Houthis. In 2014, the Houthis grabbed their weapons and began the Yemeni civil war. They first fight to gain access to the Red Sea, and then keep moving downwards towards the capital, Sana'a, thanks to the help of the local population. In January 2015, the Houthis established themselves as the leaders of the country, which forced Hadi to seek refuge in the south of the country. Building on the momentum, the Houthis take control of the southern part of the country by first attacking Ta'ez and then the strategical harbour of Aden. Even though they only control about a third of the country, most of the population lives in the western part of Yemen, which means that the Houthis now are the ultimate leaders of the country. Hadi is forced to escape to Saudi Arabia. Just when the Houthis thought they had won the war, this conflict escalated to yet another level. Iran, a country mainly Shiite, was accused of financially and militarily supporting the rebels. What's concerning European and Middle Eastern countries is the fact that the Bab el-Mandab Strait is now in rebel hands. This strait is important because it's the 4th most important sea crossing point for oil. Therefore, Saudi Arabia creates an international coalition with 9 other countries: Morocco, Sudan, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. All of these countries are in fact ultimately backed up by the US. On top of protecting the Bab el-Mandab Strait, Saudi Arabia also wants to protect its southern border. This international coalition also aims at lowering the influence of Iran, but what they often tend to forget is that the Houthis are the only forces in Yemen to fight against the growing influence of Al-Qaeda. They started bombing the Houthis, causing massive civilian casualties, targeting everything from marketplaces to hospitals or even schools. In fact, the situation is so bad that since 2015, according to a local NGO, more than 12,000 civilians may have been killed. This is the reason why the UN is investigating for potential war crimes, but the blame also spreads to a greater power, which indirectly supports this war. You see, this bloody conflict wouldn't have been able to occur if the United States didn't provide the support. Since World War II, the United States have been selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, but it doesn't stop there. The United States have also been providing military training to the Saudis troops. Over the past few years, Saudi Arabia has bought more weapons from the US than any other country in the world. Last year alone, the Trump administration declared an emergency over Iran to bypass Congress and move forward with an $8 billion arms sales to Saudi Arabia. The F-15 fighter jets of the Saudis don't have enough fuel to bomb Yemen for days in a row, so the US actually refuel their jets mid-air. They do so by either using their base in Turkey to send a refueling plane or from US carriers in the Arabian Sea. These refuels provide the Saudi jets a much longer range and allow them to cause more casualties.
A day of deadly bombing by Saudi-led warplanes has killed at least 80 people in Yemen's capital Sana'a.
Allahu Akbar!
Witnesses said many civilians were caught up in the blast.
Yet Yemen is just the tipping point of the iceberg. So much bigger conflict opposes Iran and Saudi Arabia. It's kind of a modern Cold War between two immensely powerful countries. To believe that this is only a religious fight would be a mistake. There are a lot of geopolitical factors and financial influences involved in this conflict. The United States' fight against Iran in Yemen proxy warfare is just one of them. According to the United Nations, this is the world's biggest humanitarian crisis since 2015.